disabilities. And I just saw in that role that there were a lot of services for people, before the age of 21, 22, but then people in adulthood just had very few resources in our community. And it took me about 10 years to figure out that, hey, I could go become that person. I'm very fortunate that right in the backyard at UNC, within the medical school, there's a program in psychology that's specifically geared towards counseling people who have experienced disability and mental health issues as a result. So it's rehabilitation counseling. So when you see the CRC in all the letters behind my name, that's what that one means.
A lot of letters.
Yeah, I know. It's obnoxious. So I was, again, very fortunate. I got to just go right back to Carolina where I'd done my undergrad, and left graduate school with the intent to start a practice to help adults with disabilities. And I was in practice for, I don't know, about 6 months or so. And I started to get a lot of calls from caregivers saying, I've read your blog post, or I heard you speak somewhere. And I just feel like you really understand the caregiver role in a way that other counselors just haven't understood. They've thought that I was over dramatizing things. How is it possible that you can never get a break, right? But that I feel like you get it. And so now, I've been in practice almost 8 years. And I work about 50-50 between working with folks with disabilities and then working with caregivers. I have an office in Cary where I meet with people. I was actually pretty fortunate, though. Before all of the COVID madness, I had already offered online counseling. That was always part of my services because I knew, caregivers who are having to adjust to dozens of new appointments, they don't have time to leave home, find find somebody to watch their loved one, drive to an office, find a parking spot, all the wildness that goes along with that and the stress. And so I wanted to have that available to people. And so with coronavirus, most of my clients, had used that or at least heard me talk about it as an option. And so it wasn't a huge transition for most of them. So that's a little bit about me and what I do.
You led me right into your next question, and we didn't even practice. Is that, how has your practice changed post-COVID? I know that a counselor that I know said, good luck trying to get an appointment with a counselor these days because we are really, really busy. This is very hard. So I'd love your input on what's changed for you.
What's changed for me, I think, is just as much as I've been able to empathize with my clients in the past, I think we've hit a whole new point of understanding. Because this is such a global and unexpected phenomenon, something, one of my new favorite catchphrases is there's no right way to do a pandemic. Lots of people see other families doing things on social media, whether it's the remote learning or, cleaning up the house, whatever it is. And they're thinking, what am I doing wrong that I'm not doing that?
Right.
And it's just, you have to lower the bar. Everybody has to lower the bar. I've had to lower my own bar. And so I think just that deep connection with how hard this is has been what's changed.
On my board right in front of my desk, it says, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay. This is the first time anybody's doing that. So there's a real new empathy that you have for people because we're all dealing with uncertainty.
We're all going through it in the moment. I wrote a blog post a couple weeks ago that was more geared towards parents raising kids with disabilities, but there was something I said in it that I've gotten a lot of feedback on, that people say, yes, this is what I haven't been able to articulate. And it's the idea that we're all taking things one day at a time.
Yeah.
But it's so much easier to go one day at a time when you know how many days you're going to have to do that.
So true. Yeah. There's no end in sight, right?
Right. And that's what's so hard is the uncertainty. A lot of my clients have said, gosh, my loved one's disabled. We're still maybe getting accustomed to this. We were homebodies, like we were already at home a lot. Why does this feel so hard? Right. And it's that element of choice that's been taken away. You don't get a say in where you get to go, or in who you get to see and all those things. And so just realizing how difficult that is when it's one thing if it's our preference to stay home and that's what we're choosing to do. But if this is your only option, that feels very different.
So again, you led me kind of right into it, although I will take an aside that on your website. You have an incredible blog, and I know that we often share that blog on our Facebook page too. But those articles are really very personal. They're awesome, and I think you do a great job at doing that. I just wanted to share that. But you mentioned something about that lack of control.
Yes.
And I was wondering if that was one of the mental health impacts that you're seeing with COVID and social isolation, if there's any other ones that you're noticing, especially in the realm of people dealing with family members with disabilities.
Sure. Yeah, in psychology terms, we talk about locus of control. And I'll just give a real quick snapshot of what that means. That people tend to either have an external locus of control, meaning that they believe in things like fate and God's will and luck and chance. And they sort of believe that my life is already to some extent predetermined. There's not much that I can do to influence.
Okay.
Versus people who have an internal locus of control, the opposite side of the spectrum, who say, yes, I have a skill set, but I can make changes to my life. I can work hard. I can try new things. I can challenge myself, and I have self-direction. If this sounds a lot like neuroplasticity,
yeah, I'm just thinking. You're talking my language.
Idea. Yes, and so it's really interesting when you look at groups of people who either have that external locus of control, they sort of believe life happens to me and I don't really have a say in it, versus those people who say, no, I'm going to show up and make choices and I have direction and agency in what happens in my life. That second group of people, it's such a healthier picture holistically, everything from heart disease, lung disease, cancer, just across the board, longevity, everything. Those people have better quality of life all around. This COVID situation has really tested, I think, everybody's sense of having control over our own lives, right? And so that puts people in a precarious mental health position. That makes us feel more powerless, which we know leads to feelings of anxiety, leads to feelings of depression, leads to unhealthy coping mechanisms. I think we've all seen the memes about day drinking parents and just trying to get to remote learning.
Right.
And is it okay to have a drink at 2 p.m? So whatever it is that people are doing to get through, one thing that I'm really focusing on with my clients is, how can you see the choice in your life? So maybe now you went from having respite providers, having habilitation aides, whatever you call them, coming in, working with your loved one, and now you're the sole caregiver.
Right.
You may feel completely powerless in that situation, and that's very understandable. But how can we, honor that feeling and help you cope with that feeling, but at the same time find even just very small ways to give you back a sense of control? Even if it's as little as, my loved one's in the other room, they call for me, they need my help. Before I go to them, I take one big, deep cleansing breath. And I choose that I'm going to go in there with calm and with love, because it is my choice to care for them. And
choice,
I acknowledge,
I love that you're emphasizing choice, because choice is synonymous with control, right? It has that power. It gives you a little bit of that power back. And whether it's a choice of, I'm going to take this online yoga class or this online art class, yes, they're both online, and yes, you wish you could go to that studio, but that choice seems like something that gives you just that tiny little bit of,
it's just a little bit of edge, even if it's, so many things that we just reminding ourselves what we do still have control over. I get to choose if I wake up and put on yoga pants or a dress, and it's going to influence my day, what I choose.
Oh, wait a minute. Someone's putting on a dress? Okay. So you mentioned anxiety and depression.
Yes.
These are two things that already are kind of at the surface with aphasia. And according to the National Aphasia Association and Aphasia Access's white paper, we're seeing that depression is very high among people who have aphasia. Let's not even, and let's mention also caregivers.
Absolutely.
So are you seeing people that already had a baseline of anxiety or depression, what's happening now with those mental health challenges?
Sure. Across the board, people are just noticing that their symptoms are more intense, that maybe, I had done some good sleep hygiene work and I had gotten to where I wasn't sleeping too much. I wasn't waking up in the middle of the night. but now my sleep is just a wreck. And so in a lot of cases, it's just a matter of sort of revisiting the basics of, you know, catching yourself when you're caught in some unhelpful thinking traps and thinking that everything is black or white. Right. Catching yourself if it's anxiety that, hey, wait a minute, I'm only asking the negative what ifs. I'm only saying, what if, you know, I get COVID and then there's no one to care for my loved one? What if we stay safe in this and we learn better ways to manage within our household? Both are equally valid. You have to force yourself to ask both. So I think it's just, yeah, kind of revisiting the basics, checking in with people on those real core symptoms of, you know, are you eating well? Are you getting out in the sunlight? You know, it's really hard that you can't go to your favorite places, but you do still need to go somewhere, right. Even if it's just for a walk around the neighborhood. And of course, for the caregivers, are you getting consistent support? Not the kind that you feel guilty having to ask for, not the kind that's sporadic, that you don't know when somebody's going to show up, but regular, routine, reliable support and assistance that gives you a break from vigilance, because vigilance is the killer.
Yeah, and again, you lead into what we've been hearing in support groups, which is, you know, my support is on virtual, and that's it right now. A lot of our families are dealing with their children and grandchildren not coming, you know, to protect them, but also they miss that social interaction has had a huge detrimental effect on their language, and which is why we're so happy that we have these options. But for example, in PPA, people are noticing a slide, you know, that thing without that stimulation. And so I really love that you're focusing on that reframing of of statements that you make. But I think that it will be really helpful for this audience as we come up with more examples of how you can reframe and more examples of how you can provide stimulation when you can't have people in, you know, to be caregivers to you or to give you the amount of respite, and that, you know, you can't leave. I had one of our clients say it was a spouse said, I feel like a prisoner. It's like a jail. And, you know, so.
As hard as it is, you know, a lot of people, caregivers, feel very badly when they voice those things. It feels like unforgivable thoughts, right?
Yeah.
The more you tell yourself you're wrong for feeling that way, the more intense and painful those feelings will get.
Say that again. Say that again. Please. This is something we cover all the time, and that these feelings are valid and normal, and you don't have to end it with, it's like giving someone a compliment and saying, but, you know, right. You can't say something like this and then say, but I love life and he's great, right, and I love caring for him, because it's like you're trying to, I'm sorry.
Trying to psych yourself out of it. And, you know, and I hear it all the time. Yeah. My clients will say, you know, these deeply profound statements of their pain, but then they feel compelled when we first start meeting to like, but I'm so glad he's still alive. And, right. And I acknowledge, you know, how bad it could be. And I'm grateful for the struggle. And it's like, hey, it doesn't have to be one or the other, you know, both can be true at the same time. You can be so grateful that your loved one is still here, and you can really resent being in this caregiver role and say, I'm struggling and I don't know how to do this. It's really hard. This isn't what I would have chosen. You're allowed to say those things, and to feel those feelings. And the more you try to tell yourself, that, I shouldn't feel this way, I should just be grateful that he's here. That's where people start to sink into depression, because you're feeling like you're not meeting this expectation.
Oh, there's this guilt that comes along with it. Even in my own situation, when my mom was very ill, you know, for a selfish reason, I wanted her here, you know, but then when she would be upset, or, you know, I would say, oh, you know, and I did, I know exactly what you're talking about. But a thing I had trouble with that you're kind of, again, leading into is really self-care and caregiver burnout. Now, that was already an issue pre-COVID, but I feel like telling somebody self-care might mean go out for a day at the spa and get your nails done and, you know, go shopping. You can't. So
you can't do any of those things.
Yeah.
But there's something that you did today, that I did today, that all the other 28 or however many other people I can see are in the room with us, that we all did today that was self-care.
What's that?
We brushed our teeth.
Oh, well, That would have been nasty if we didn't do that.
Exactly. No matter how stressed you are, no matter how overwhelmed you feel, no matter how bad of a day you've had, you always take those 2 minutes to brush your teeth, and we all do.
Yeah.
And there's a reason. It is so ingrained. It's become a habit. We recognize the risk if we don't do it, both immediate, I'm not going to feel good, other people are going to notice,
Right.
and the long term, that if I don't do this consistently, I am going to have real risk associated. It's going to be painful. It's going to be expensive. So all around, we just sort of know, I brush my teeth. That's what I do. Even if I'm running late, I would never say to my husband, oh, we're late out the door, I just won't brush my teeth. And that's the solution,
Right.
right? True self-care has to pass what I call the toothbrush test. It has to feel that automatic, that consistent, that guilt-free. If it doesn't, it's not real self-care. So if you take, 20 minutes a day to do your online yoga video, and it means that your loved one just sits and watches TV, and you know that you're not stimulating them during that time, and you feel bad about that, you've still got some work to do. Because what will happen is that guilt will start to eat away at you. You'll start to feel like you're not providing enough. You're not enough as a caregiver, and you'll pass up your needs to meet theirs without realizing that your mental health is such a huge factor in how your loved one's recovery is going to go.
Oh, again, say that again. That is so important. How it influences not just your well-being, but the well-being of your caregiver. So you're not doing anyone any favors.
No. I say this to pretty much all of my clients who love someone with aphasia, which is any assessment you've received, PT, OT, speech, any of the ancillary services you're getting.
Right.
There's one recommendation that I can almost guarantee you that they've left out of their reports and their assessments, which is take care of yourself. Because there's so much research to back up that how you're doing as a caregiver has a direct effect on how your loved one is going to do. So even if you don't do it for yourself, do it for them. I'm okay with that.
Wow. That is really powerful and important, what you're saying. Do you have any ideas for people that are kind of still sheltering at home? Because especially in our situation, we have a vulnerable population.
Yes.
A lot of our clients and their family members
Cannot
really
go.
are not going anywhere.
Yes.
Phase 2 means nothing. Phase 2 is phase 1 all over again.
I hear you.
Do you have some specific ideas for, other than brushing their teeth, which I think
do. Brush your teeth.
Yes.
Certainly, I think it, as silly as it is, I think it does bear mention to go ahead and prepare for the day as if it was a day BC, before COVID.
Yes.
Get up at the same time, take a shower, eat breakfast, following those same routines of the day just helps to lend some normalcy. Beyond that, though, this is a question that I get asked a lot of, like, what's the best self-care? I don't think people are at a loss of what to do. People know what they would like to be doing more of. People know what energizes them and lights them up.
Yeah.
So if you're asking, what should I be doing? What's missing is not the idea of what to do. What's missing is I think, again, that mindset and that belief that it is important enough to do something. Yeah. Whatever it is. If it's photography and you used to be a nature photographer, well, set up some plants and take photos of things in the house or just in the yard around.
Right.
If it's reading, you can order books, whatever it is that quote unquote fills your bucket. That's what you need to be spending your time doing. Doesn't matter what your friends and family are doing on social media. It's great if everybody loves to go to the yoga class and now the retirement center is offering online yoga. That's wonderful. But if you hate yoga, don't do a down dog. It's not for you. Right. Do what works for you. Do it consistently. One of my tips that I like to give clients is, don't let one self-care period, time, event, whatever, end without having the next 2 or even 3 scheduled. Because life will happen. You will miss that next one that you plan because your loved one gets sick, you have an unexpected telehealth appointment with their doctor, whatever. Schedule them out far in advance so that even if you miss a few here and there, it stays on your mind. You're reminded that it's important for you to do.
I think that's awesome. And I've heard multiple times over this period of time we've been sheltering in place about routine and how important it is to get up and get dressed and brush your teeth and get that theme of brushing your teeth going. There's a lot of those things that we hear are really good for you. I also think, planning something like you're saying, self-care, and have something to look forward to. I've been Zooming with my high school friends, and literally I have, other than connecting on Facebook, we really haven't talked in, I'm not going to tell you how many years because I haven't colored my roots in a very long time, but it's a long time. And now to be able to kind of look forward to, hey, Sunday night, my group of friends are going to get together and walk down memory lane for an hour has been.
I love it.
And no matter how Zoom fatigued I am, which happens.
It's real.
Yeah, it's real. It's something to look forward to. So maybe you can take your routine and switch it up a little. Like instead of having dinner at the table, try having a picnic on the floor, or, eat in a different room, or, listen to music and, slow dance or something that just takes a little bit of planning, but it's kind of something to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been so awesome. Before I start to ask some questions that already came in when I was planning this, I got a couple questions, but I think that we'll be getting some questions on our chat or on our question and answer too. And please, you guys, just start adding if you have some specific questions for Rose, and feel free to have an example and she can, see if we can walk through it. But I'll give you a couple that I have heard and maybe some of the thoughts you'd have for them. So I usually have time away from the person I love with aphasia, and now it's just me and her all the time. I feel bad, but I feel like I'm constantly working. I know we addressed a little bit of it, but do you answer to that?
You are. You are. It's more than a full-time job. It felt like a full-time job, I'm sure, before when you had those periods of respite. And now, again, it's uncertain. We don't know when you'll be able to have alternate caregivers come back into the house. That's a really overwhelming feeling. And before you can even start to try to think about what can help, I think really acknowledging this is tough. This is something that nobody has ever done before. Right. Truly.
They say it's part of your story now, it's part of our kids' story. It's part of the story. I mean, I'm encouraging from a language perspective, write it down, sit together and do a little journal. These are memories that hopefully one day will seem like, oh my God, we went through this and we did, that well. But that is
if it helps, if you're feeling really powerless and overwhelmed, even if it's just at the end of the day, take 1 minute, look in the mirror and name something that you did that day that demonstrated resilience, or a choice that you made that day. Even if it was as small as, I chose to put on earrings, right? Just to remind yourself that I do still have control over aspects of my life. At the same time, this is so hard. Trying to connect with others. I know TAP is such an incredible resource for this, to say, I'm a caregiver, I'm struggling. Can you link me up with somebody who's either feeling the same way and we can commiserate and support each other, or somebody maybe who used to feel this way, who's now willing to be a bit of a mentor and take me under their wing. But I need to talk to somebody else who gets it. And then certainly too, if you do find yourself really feeling overwhelmed, hopeless, helpless, certainly if you're having any thoughts of is this worth it? What am I doing? Of course, as a mental health counselor, I have to say, please seek out professional assistance. Whether it's from me or one of my colleagues, I don't care. I just want you to get the help that you need if you really start to feel raw.
Awesome. That's great advice. I'll give another one, and then I'm going to try to get onto this chat and see. There's another one about really missing your family and children and grandchildren, whether it's, local ones that you can't see or other, that would have planned a vacation.
Yeah. Again, that very deep empathy I'm having for my clients. My parents live about 2 miles away, and short of walking past their house and waving from the sidewalk, we haven't seen them. And it's so hard. It's so hard. you know, for young kids to understand. And then, you know, that's of course an added layer. If you do have young children or grandchildren and they're all going through a very difficult time with this, lots of kids are regressing in skills that they had learned or just having emotional struggles because of all this. So everybody is struggling, everybody is missing each other. Again, I think just being real and authentic about how hard that is. I think people feel, especially with young children, compelled to try to protect their feelings and, you know, again, like focus on the good stuff, which is great. You know, send care packages, have ice cream across the street from 6 feet away, do all those things.
Yeah.
But it's okay to say, even to very young kids, I miss hugging you so much. I can't wait until I can hold you again and cuddle with you and read you stories. And there is no amount of Zoom that can that can replace that contact and that touch that we all need with the people we love. So again, instead of trying to redirect the kids from their sadness and their feelings of uncertainty, just say, you know, yeah, this sucks. I hate this.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. They will appreciate hearing it.
Well, I think what's fascinating, I saw one of my friends was saying, my son loves to go get the mail now because his grandmother is writing him notes and sending them in the mail. You know, let's go back old fashioned. Let's get some, you know, it's great writing practice for our folks with aphasia, but also, you know, they're going to keep those letters forever. So that's something that they can do.
My kids and the neighbor kids have a game of tic-tac-toe going through the mailbox.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That is great. We got to come up with a list of ideas like that and share them.
I know there's a website where people can do, that has a bunch of games that some of my clients have used, like with their grandkids. One of my clients actually, he figured out that Battleship is a game that works great over Zoom if you both have a copy. That you can do that. So yeah, I know there's resources out there that give lots of ideas of ways to stay engaged. But no matter how much of that you're doing, it's different, but it's never going to be enough. And just know that.
Yeah. So and we had, when we started TAP at Home, started 3 Facebook groups. So they're private groups, only people in TAP are allowed in. And so it's a safe place for clients, caregivers, and PPA diagnosis folks to be in there. And I'm really encouraging more use of those. I feel like it's just such it's kind of like an internal email or back and forth, and sharing some of your life and your stories and your techniques. And I know that one of our group leaders, Savan, had posted some activities like you're talking about, games and stuff. So I'm going to stop the live stream because I don't, from Facebook, and then we'll answer some questions and concerns. So bye, Facebook people. We'll see you soon. And I'm actually going to stop the recording as well, because